So in this video, I'm going to talk about the characteristics of life. So there's a bunch of them. First, there's organization. And I'm going to explain all of these in detail after I list them. There's cellular composition, metabolism, and then responsiveness, / movement, homeostasis, development, reproduction, and finally evolution. And so let's define all of those. So by organization, what it's referring to is living things they have a higher level of organization. So they have a higher level of organization compared to non-living. To non-living things. And then all matter, all living matter is made up of cells. And so the next one is metabolism. So metabolism / energy use. And metabolism is defined as sum of all internal chemical changes. So sum of all internal chemical changes. And this includes anabolism, anabolic reactions, as well as catabolism. Catabolic reactions. Remember, catabolic breaks down, anabolic builds up. And one thing to note is the metabolic rate is the rate energy sorry not rate so it's the energy an animal uses per unit time. And so that's metabolism / energy use. And next is responsiveness and movement. So the ability to sense and react to stimuli is called responsiveness. So responsiveness is the ability to sense and react to stimuli. And that's responsiveness. And so most organisms can respond to, most living things, actually all living things can respond to something, but most living organisms can move from place to place, or they are capable of moving materials within their bodies. And so the next thing we're going to talk about is development, reproduction / evolution, all of that. And so development is defined as a change, so any change in form, function over an organism's lifetime. So over an organism's life. And so some cells are actually so they're essentially specialized. So differentiation, that is differentiation. It's essentially specialization of cells. So, for example, some general cells, such as stem cells, become more specialized cells, such as skin cells, for example. And then, finally, as you know, all living things must be capable of producing, like, offspring or copies of themselves to essentially keep the species alive. And then one really important thing kind of has to do with evolution, but all living organisms, all living things exhibit genetic change from generation to generation. And the next thing is homeostasis. And so homeostasis is the body's ability to maintain stable internal conditions. So body's ability to maintain stable internal conditions. And it's important to remember that the internal conditions are not constant. So these are not constant. So think of something similar to a thermostat, right? It fluctuates up and down, but essentially the average is all the same. So that's essentially what homeostasis is. So it fluctuates around a set point, and that's a limited range. And so the set point is the ideal point. For example, your body temperature is around 98 degrees Fahrenheit, but it fluctuates from 97 to 99. Other things that fluctuate in your body are blood pressure, salt levels, water levels, and blood oxygen levels. And so there are two, essentially, what we mostly talk about is a negative feedback loop to maintain homeostasis. So negative feedback loop. And so this is essentially the thermostat example I gave, where it just fluctuates around a set point. Like the set point is in the middle, we'll use red. And so sometimes it goes above, sometimes it goes below, but never too far away from the set point. So it kind of like averages out. And so another example is of how humans do that. If it gets too hot outside, your blood vessels, they dilate, called vasodilation. And so that causes sweating and allows you to lose heat. So if it was up here, this is a high body temperature where the arrow is, your body will start to lose heat to get to that red line. So if it's too cold, vessels constrict And so that would be at a point down here, low body temperature. You start to shiver, so this is called vasoconstriction. You start to shiver, and then eventually your body temperature will get down to this range in the middle, the red. And so there's three components of a feedback loop. A receptor, something that detects a signal, integrating center, and an effector. And so what the receptor is, it senses the change in the body. The receptor sends it to the integrating center, which is a control center, usually the brain. It's a place that makes a decision, and the effector carries out the final thing, the final action. And so we saw that there was a negative feedback loop, but there's also a positive feedback loop. And so what this is it's self-amplifying. So instead of staying at one point, it's moving further and further away. So it's a way of producing rapid changes. So it occurs such as, an example it would be childbirth. It just, something called oxytocin. This stimulates the contractions, and the fetus will kick back. And then this stimulates more oxytocin to be released to produce stronger reactions, stronger contractions, And so it's just an amplifying process that moves away from equilibrium, essentially. And it happens in blood clotting, protein digestion, fever. But sometimes positive feedback can be harmful or even deadly, such as in the instance of a fever, because your body will get hotter and hotter, and eventually it's going to get too hot and you'll die.